not long. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
Not so long ago, in a time not so far away, people all over the world gathered around the newest technology of the time to bear witness to the horrors of systemic human error. Not so long ago, people sat around their televisions and saw dogs tear at human flesh, water poured on bodies, churches bombed, children jailed, and people assassinated. Not so long ago, people came home from work and school and play, and at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and they sat and watched the news and wondered whether this was chaos or community. You see, all year long, the Upper Mid-African American Cultural Center has hosted programming under the banner, Yours to Tell, narrating Black lives in the 21st century, because we believe, like the famed West African proverb, that until the lion can begin to tell its story, the story will always glorify the hunter. This proverb is a commentary on the relationship of narrative between oppressor and oppressed. It is a statement of power. It is an invitation to be a storyteller. It is an urging for the lion to tell its own story. And so it should be no surprise that we have called for this celebratory gathering to consider what did it mean for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and so many other movement makers to use nonviolent demonstration as a way to poke at the venomous snake of racism during a time when we were all watching primetime television. And not so long ago, people sat all over the world watching the U.S., the United States of America, a land of the free, be transformed into a better place as doors of opportunity were pushed open, and they watched it all on the nightly news. They watched it happen on the nightly news. Who then is better suited to help us reflect on the power of telling a story than a world-renowned journalist? Who then is better suited to help us reflect on the legacy of King than an orator, a public intellectual, and a fraternity of Martin Luther King Jr., an alpha man? Tonight, I am excited to welcome the entire Wilmington community to engage the insightful and dynamic Roland Martin. And we are grateful here at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, for the amazing contributions of so many people noted in your program on the back who have contributed to making this night possible. So on behalf of Seahawk Country, on behalf of Sankofa Country and the Upper Mid-African American Cultural Center, we welcome you to the 2017 Martin Luther King Day celebration featuring our esteemed guest, my good brother, Roland Martin. Good evening. We now welcome to the stage none other than our own Chancellor, Dr. Jose V. Sartorelli.
Good evening. Thank you. UNCW is honored to welcome all of you to campus tonight for a very, very special celebration. We are here as a diverse and inclusive community to reflect on the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Let me cite one of his quotes. "Intelligence plus character, that is the soul of true education." We at UNCW share that goal. UNCW is very pleased to welcome our keynote speaker, award-winning journalist Roland Martin, to Wilmington. And I'm looking forward to an insightful and thought-provoking presentation from him. Many campus and community partners were involved in bringing Mr. Martin here tonight. We appreciate your support and collaboration. UNCW is a student-centered campus dedicated to excellence, integrity, innovation, and diversity. Our strategic plan emphasizes UNCW's commitment to inclusiveness and to embracing the unique contributions that each Seahawk brings to our campus. Once again, I want to thank Mr. Martin for being here tonight, and I also want to thank all of you for being active and engaged citizens of the community, this great community that UNCW calls home. Thank you very much, and welcome, Mr. Martin.
Greetings. On behalf of the Black Student Union here at UNCW, I am Daquan Mitchell, president of the Black Student Union this year, and I am proud that you all came here today. Roland Martin, over the course of a journalistic career that has seen him do interviews from newsmakers ranging all the way to the U.S. presidents, top athletes, and entertainers, Roland Martin has always entertained a clear sense of who he is and his calling. Martin is the host and managing editor of TV One's News One Now, the first daily morning news program in history to focus on the news and analysis of politics, entertainment, sports, and culture from an explicitly African-American perspective. He is also the creator and host of The Roland Martin Show, a daily syndicated radio broadcast in 20 markets across this country. He has also received more than 40 professional media awards and honors by numerous organizations, such as he was awarded the Journalist of the Year Award from the National Association of Black Journalists. He was also named a two-time winner of the NAACP Image Award and also named 3 times to be Ebony's Magazine's 150 most influential African Americans here. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of UNCW, Black Student Union, and the Upperman Center, I'd like to introduce you, Roland Martin.
So how we doing? All right then, certainly glad to be here, to see all of you. Do me a favor, please turn the lights up. I prefer to see people when I'm talking. So that way when I say something, I make somebody uncomfortable, I can see them being uncomfortable. Oh, that wasn't rhetorical, that was literal. Please turn the lights up. I am glad to be here, glad to be on your campus to see all of you. It has been quite a busy week or so. MLK, no, seriously, turn the lights up. I'm very serious. MLK, thank you very much. MLK Day used to be MLK Day, but now we celebrate MLK Week, which is somewhat now MLK Month, which is certainly fine with me because it is necessary. But let me also say this, which I think is important. And also the brother, I need to get the Wi-Fi is not working, so I'm trying to stream this because I have about 1.4 million followers on Facebook and Twitter, and so they like to hear what I have to say as well, and so I want them to be able to see you. So if someone can step out so I can get your Wi-Fi straight, I would appreciate that. MLK, I'm a multitasker. That's how I do. Y'all realize I got 2 HD cameras going right now, plus I'll have 2 devices going to stream to Facebook and Periscope at the same time. And so what is interesting to me about when we celebrate this time of the year, I believe that we make a mistake. I understand why we have a focus on the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but the reality is when we are celebrating this day, we're actually not just celebrating him. When he won the Nobel Peace Prize, he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of the movement. Okay, I do need somebody to step up so I can do the Wi-Fi. I'm serious about that too. And so he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of the entire movement. And so when we celebrate King's birthday, we are actually celebrating all of the various folks who have been involved in the civil rights movement, because it wasn't just about Dr. King. It was Septima Clark. It was Constance Baker Motley. It was Ella Baker. It was Fannie Lou Hamer. It was Hosea Williams and Reverend Jackson, Fred Shuttlesworth, C.T. Vivian, and we can go on and on and on. It was 4 students from North Carolina A&T. It was Ruby Bridges. It was also, you had, of course, the Wilmington 10. You had a number of people who played a critical role in terms of getting to where we are now. We should never lose sight of that fact. When we celebrated the opening of the MLK Memorial in 2011, we did so by opening the memorial, but that memorial also represented the entire movement. And so I think we make a mistake when we only focus on one individual, because if there's a fundamental problem that I have with America today, is that what we have done with Dr. King is turn him into America's mascot. The problem I have is that MLK has become a bobblehead on our mantle that we pull out, talk about how wonderful he was, how nice, and he talked about hope, and he prayed for folks, but that is a fundamental lie. Dr. King was one of America's greatest radicals. And the reason I need us to understand that is because as long as we continue to perpetrate a fraud on people today, by presenting MLK as someone who he was not, then we're doing a disservice to his legacy. It bothers me that when we somehow act as if MLK is still, like he was some 75-year-old figure and who was just nice and gentle. But see, we did the exact same thing when it came to Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela dies, and we all celebrated the Nelson Mandela Madiba, who we saw older, slower, grayer. But everybody forgot the Nelson Mandela who was a freedom fighter when he was 25, 30. We do the exact same thing when we talk about freedom fighters. We lost Muhammad Ali last year. He would have been 74 years old. He was 75 years old this year. And same thing. I loved how folks talked about, oh my God, how he was the greatest. They loved him. But the very same people who would have opposed Muhammad Ali when he chose not to go into the draft in Vietnam, all of a sudden are praising him. And so I'm saying all of that because that serves as the setup to what I want to deal with. I was contemplating in these difficult times we're looking at when we are in a state where people have chosen not to actually practice democracy. We're in a state where I have said is the 21st century Alabama. Now, let me be real clear. If y'all were desiring somebody to come here and to make you feel good, and celebrate and make you comfortable, then you should have invited my wife. She's an ordained minister. She could have prayed with y'all. She could have prayed with y'all. She could have comforted y'all. Everybody would have been feeling great. God gave her this wonderful spirit of comfort. But let me be perfectly clear with y'all. God gave me a spirit of discomfort. I'm not one to sit here and mince words and sit here and dance around and play around with topics. No, I mean to cut to the chase and be clear. And so that's the only way I have been. I know exactly how God made me. You can read Psalm 139 if you like. And so let me put it this way, because a lot of times when you have speeches, and look, I'm born and raised in Texas. I understand the Bible Belt, and so when you talking to folks in this area, you got to tag your text so they fully understand what you're talking about. And if the person sitting next to you has no idea what I'm talking about when I say tag your text, clearly they likely have never been to a black church. And so I want to frame this, and it's very clear, and it's really 3 words. Those 3 words are stand your ground. By this time tomorrow, we will have a new president. By this time tomorrow, we will have a new president who walks into the Oval Office with the lowest approval rating of any recent president elected. This time tomorrow, we will have elected somebody who reveled in sexually assaulting women, chastised Mexicans, told black folks, what do you have to lose, reveled in filing for bankruptcy, had no problem endorsing people who fought at rallies, and then have the audacity and unmitigated gall to somehow say, make America great again. We stand here in this moment in history where you have a new governor in North Carolina who has been in office less than 30 days, yet when he walked in, was stripped of the very powers the previous governor had. You sit in a state where they tried to pack the state Supreme Court because Republicans lost at the ballot box. You will sit in a state where they decided to give more powers to the court under the state Supreme Court than the actual state Supreme Court. We sit in a state where the federal court said they use a laser-like focus to target black voters to keep them from voting. When they took over state elections boards and chose to only have one early voting site in the various states. We sit in a state where they chose to not accept Medicaid expansion, shut down rural hospitals, leading to the deaths of other people, and then have the audacity to somehow claim that they care about regular, ordinary people. But let me be real clear, because I know some folks sitting in here who are Republican who are saying, oh, here we have another liberal Democrat. Let me be clear. I've never identified as a Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal. No party will ever get to call me one of theirs. I make it my mission to give both of them hell when necessary. We are living in a time where Democrats get 90+% of the black vote, yet when you look at the fact that in the last 7 years, when they spent more than $500 million on various campaigns, black folks got 1.7%. When it came to consultant jobs and posters jobs, Democrats have the audacity nationally to talk about income inequality when they practice it. Why am I laying all of these things out? It is because what we have to understand is that I am sick and tired of us showing up at MLK events talking about what he did, but not willing to actually do what he did today. I'm not impressed by this, what I call a Negro check-off event. Every single year we have events like these, and what happens is we go ahead and plan our schedule around the MLK event, the MLK lecture series, the MLK breakfast, the MLK speeches. We do it at churches, community centers, city halls, state capitol. Yet when you begin to ask the people, are you willing to stand up for the issues that he fought for and died for, all of a sudden folks say, I got to go. I mean no disrespect, but I got a fundamental problem being on a campus of 13,000 students and less than 1,000 of them black. And what I'm... and I not see that represented in this room. See, the reason I'm saying that, and I'm real clear why I'm saying that, because what we must understand is that when you were talking about the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, August 28, 1963, you did not just see black folks there. When you saw them in Selma on that bridge, you did not just see black folks there. We also understood that it was Reverend James Reed, a Unitarian pastor from Boston, who was killed on that particular night, a white brother who came there to stand with black folks for the cause of justice. We understand on the same night when they finished Selma to Montgomery, when they had that particular march, Viola Liuzzo, a white mother from Michigan, who had her head blown off driving down the highway by a group of our Klansmen in a truck because she dared to come help register black folks to vote. If we're talking about how we confront civil rights and moral rights and human rights today in 2017, it cannot happen just having black folks at the table when other folks benefit from that same work. See, the reason I need us to understand, because I believe too many of us, even those of us who are college educated, multiple degrees, really have gotten a false education. Because see, when I look right now, and if you want to question anything I say, go right ahead and Google it, but don't embarrass yourself. Because when I look at what's happening today, when I see the number of women out here who are doctors and lawyers and dentists and engineers and professors, all of that goes back to when Title IX was passed by Congress in the early 70s. And one of the problems is that we have somehow framed Title IX as being all about sports, when Title IX was not about sports. Title IX was actually passed to open up the professional schools to women in colleges and universities. And that's why you had an explosion of women who became doctors and lawyers and dentists and engineers and professors all across the country because of Title IX. Yet if you ask the average white woman in America, where does Title IX come from, or the average person, they have no idea. Title IX comes from a section of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So if you are one of those women, or the daughter of one of those women, or the son of one of those women, your mother was able to go to college based upon the hard work of black folks who marched to make sure that law got signed into law. That's called American history. When I came back to North Carolina to stand with HBCUs to stop that atrocious bill where they were trying to cut the funding of those institutions, I challenged folks who are LGBT, where are you? I challenged them because I said black folks stood with you when it came to the transgender bathroom bill, yet when it came to HBCUs, they were missing in action. I had to remind folks who are LGBT, you don't have same-sex marriage without the issue of the 14th Amendment, and that is the come on. If you do not have that clause in the 14th Amendment, you don't have same-sex marriage. The 14th Amendment was one of the Reconstruction Acts in this country. When I see somebody disabled in the American with Disabilities Act, I explain to them very clear, you don't have the American with Disabilities Act unless you have the 1964 Civil Rights Act, because that's where it came from. If you're Latino or Vietnamese or you are voting and you have a ballot that is in your native tongue, you need to thank the people who died to make the 1965 Voting Rights Act a reality. If you are a poor white woman or white man or Hispanic or Asian or black, understand that you get public housing and you get to be able to live there because of the 1968 Fair Housing Act. Why am I laying all of these things out? Because America has always benefited from the hard work that black folks put in to make America real. See, we spend all this time talking about equality, but if you actually read the writings of Dr. King, you rarely ever saw him talk about equality. He often talked about freedom. Because what he desired is for black folks to be able to be born and have the exact same rights as anybody else born. Not pass a new law, not sign a new executive order, but to have the same inalienable rights. And what he did, he said to America, black folks are going to make you live up to the very Constitution you say you love. See, we love to play this cute game where we talk about founding fathers and what they created and how important it was. Yet, it makes no sense when you have people today who are out in the streets protesting not to be shot. It makes no sense to have to fight not to be pulled over because you're black. It makes no sense that you have to go to court and after time just to be able to have the right to vote. But Frederick Douglass made it perfectly clear when he said point blank, he said, agitate, 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 because power concedes nothing without a demand. And what we are dealing with right now is that we are facing an America where folks say they want to take their country back, and when we hear take their country back, we remember what it was like when they had all of their country. See, forgive me if I'm the reason they didn't want us to read during slavery. See, I had a problem during this election when I was watching television and I was hearing all the analysis. They were talking about how tough life has been for white working class men, and I was watching this one analysis where they said that since 1973, the wages of white working class men had only gone up 3%, and the wages of black folks had gone up 12%. And I said, well, what the hell jobs did we have before 1973? I had to remind them that we were so low we couldn't help but go high. See, we somehow still walk in denial about the reality of our country. We don't want to confront the reality when 20-odd Africans arrived in Fort Comfort, Virginia, now known as Fort Monroe, in the colony of Jamestown in August of 1619. You go from 1619 to 1863 when you're dealing with slavery, legalized in this country, legalized in the various states. That's what drove the economy of America. Gerald Horne writes in his book dealing with this issue that one of the reasons why we had an American Revolution wasn't because of some tea in Boston. Wasn't because of some religious rights. It was because there was fear of the colonies that England was going to somehow abolish slavery, which was the dominant economic engine in the 13 colonies. See, I love it when I have folks from the North love dissing folks from the South as if the folks in the South were only had slaves when it was the folks in the North who owned the insurance companies and actually insured the slaves and the ships. I love it when I hear people have this conversation about the Industrial Revolution, and that's what made America an economic power. No, if you don't have free labor from slavery, you don't have the money to be able to have the Industrial Revolution. See, all these things are somehow interconnected. And so when you begin to study, go from 1863, Emancipation Proclamation, then you go through the Reconstruction Acts, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and all of a sudden now you're in Reconstruction, a 12-year period that actually was the brightest point for black folks in this country, where America said we must confront what we did, so therefore let's provide opportunities. That was a discussion about 40 acres and a mule. You had the Freedmen's Bureau that was created, the Freedmen's Bank that was created right across from the White House. Lincoln is killed 2 months later. That bank pretty much withers on the vine. Frederick Douglass puts the equivalent of $20 million into the bank to keep it afloat. Why? Because that was to create financial literacy for freed slaves. You begin to see freed slaves elected to legislatures all across the country. Then all of a sudden, an election happens in 1876. You go through this period where all of a sudden America says, oh, we're pretty much tired. We good. We've done enough for y'all. We passed the 1866 Civil Rights Act. All of a sudden, we're fine. We passed the 1875 Civil Rights Act. We're pretty good. It's enough of that. We're about tired of dealing with y'all freed slaves. Even though you look at more than 200 years of free labor, and now you tired after just 10 years. So then you go to the 1876 election. Now you had issues, question whether or not who won. Sounds familiar? And then there's a great compromise. South says, do us a favor. We'll let Hayes be president if you remove the troops from the 3 remaining southern states. We ain't gonna do nothing. We're gonna leave the slaves alone, the free slaves. We're gonna leave black folks alone. Everything's gonna be great. Republicans bought that nonsense, cut the deal. The moment they cut the deal, Democrats in the South went to those state capitals, took them over, kicked all the black folks out. Jim Crow begins. 1883, you then have the Supreme Court rules 8-1 unconstitutional. 1875 Civil Rights Act, you don't have another Civil Rights Act passed until 1957. Now all of a sudden, Klan rises up. What used to be slave patrols now become police departments. So now all of a sudden you move through a whole period of Jim Crow, and now you go through 1910, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. Now all of a sudden you have Robert Abbott, founder of the Chicago Defender, leading the Double V campaign, victory abroad, victory at home, saying let's fight fascism across abroad, but let's also fight segregation at home. You've got President Herbert Hoover, Republican, who wants to create the Lily White Party. You then have President Wilson, a violent racist, who shows Birth of a Nation at the White House, who hated black folks with every bone of his body. And then all of a sudden you go through 4 terms of FDR. You see Jesse Owens go to the 1936 Olympics, win 4 gold medals, never get invited to the White House or thanked by the president. Oh, I'm sorry. I know he was liberals love FDR, but FDR also has some racial issues. So now you go through Jim Crow. Then you go all of a sudden to Brown versus Board of Education in 54. Now you get Emmett Till killed August 20th, 1955. Then you go December 1st, when Rosa Parks sits down, the bus boycott begins. Then you go through 13 years of civil rights movement. You go from 55 to 68, various laws passed. Then all of a sudden, Nixon runs in 68, Mr. Law and Order. Southern strategy. The period of black progress ends. All you got to do is read Dr. King's book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here? His worst-selling book of his life, released in 1967, where he predicted what was going to happen. He said America didn't cost America much to allow us to sit in hotels. Didn't cost America much to allow us to swim in swimming pools. Didn't cost America much to allow us to go to parks. Now the question is, will America cut the check it has never want to cut to right its past wrongs? And he then said in the same book, our biggest adversary will be our white liberal allies, because even they will not be with us. You don't believe me? Go read it. It's in the book. So all of a sudden, Nixon gets elected. Southern strategy. You then create the whole issue, war on drugs. Now you go through that whole period. The next thing you know, 2008 comes along. Here you have a senator, state senator from Illinois, runs 8 years in the White House. What happens? He runs, folks mad, folks upset, fixes the economy, health care, made law in this country, kills Osama bin Laden, and folks still say he wasn't good enough. Now all of a sudden, 8 years of progress, Trump gets elected. Here's the reality. In the history of America, every time you've seen black progress, you've seen white backlash. That's just fact. Now, why am I framing it this way? Because when I see people today crying and depressed and upset, oh my God, we've never seen anything like this, that tells me they've never read American history. You see, what we are dealing with right now is what I have been saying since 2009. It's called white fear. And let me explain that, because you see, people, I love people when they have these ridiculous conversations. They're like, well, you saying so-and-so's a racist? No. You see, the reason I don't waste my time with those discussions is because then if you say you're a racist, then it's no, I'm not. So now the debate becomes racist and not racist, as opposed to the very issue we were talking about. What's happening right now is there is fear in America because America is changing. There is fear. There is fear. Make America Great Again is born out of fear. Take our country back is born out of fear. Can we please go back to the country we used to have? That is fear. See, some of us don't like the country we used to have because it wasn't too good for us. Now, I need you to understand this here. Because, see, if you don't believe me, fine. Do your own analytical study what I'm talking about. Every year, Pew does a study, and they ask the question, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? That was a question that was asked in 2009, shortly after President Barack Obama was inaugurated. What was quite interesting about that, every racial group in America said, by more than a majority, they were optimistic about the future of America for their children, except one group, white Americans. See, so now you've got to unpack that thing. Why is it you're not optimistic about the future of America for your children? Black folks are, Hispanic folks are, Asian folks are, even Native Americans are. But why not you? So check September 2016. There was a study that was released. The question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically? The group at the lowest economically, black folks, had the highest optimism. Now, y'all explain that. How can the folks at the lowest, average wealth of a black family is $5,000, average wealth of a white family is $110,000. How is it that black folks had the most optimism about America in the future economically? The group that had the second lowest economic output, Hispanics, had the second highest optimism. Asians came in third. Whites were at 41%. Now, here you have to ask yourself the question, wait a minute, hold up, I don't understand. How can the average white family in America have an average wealth of $110,000, black folks $5,000? If you look at the last 8 years, African Americans, when you talk about the ability to recoup money, they lost 64% of money. Whites lost 27% of money because African Americans lost 53% of all wealth due to home foreclosure crisis. Because for us, most of our wealth is established in a household. When you go to African Americans, we largely have a house. Whites have more diversity when it comes to income, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and homes. And so they were not as impacted because, as we saw the stock market, it did well last 8 years. Housing didn't do well, stock market did. So we were hurt primarily by housing as opposed to being able to have money in the stock market. That's just called fact. And so all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, how can you be at 41%, you are not optimistic about the future of America economically? What does that mean? It means that America is changing. All of a sudden, now you have competition. Now, all of a sudden, you no longer have a situation where you can walk into any place and pretty much get a job. Now you actually have to compete. And see, that's tough for some folks. Now, I'm just being real. Now, if you want to doubt what I'm saying, fine. Please come up with an answer that can explain 41%. You can't show me average wealth of $110,000, but you're scared about the future for your kids economically. When you sitting on $110,000 average, and black folks sitting on an average $5,000, but have a higher optimism. What does that mean? Because see, 30 years ago, when the figures came out saying we were going to be a majority minority country, everybody said, oh man, we're going to be dead. I ain't going to be here. I ain't going to worry about that. But something happened. First, white Americans stopped having kids. White birth rates went down. Time magazine just did the story 3 months ago saying that in some states, the actual white death rate will surpass in 5-10 years the white birth rate. That's just fact. Hispanics kept having kids, black folks kept having kids. So when they said we would be majority minority country by 2060, that became 2057, then 55, then 52, then 51, then 50. Now it says by 2044, no one group will be a majority in America. So what we're dealing with right now, when you look at all of these things happening politically, you're actually dealing with tribalism. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with, oh my God, what is happening to the country that I grew up in, that I've known? It is because it's becoming black and browner, and now competition comes in. Now it's no longer where you're able to have all of the spoils of a country. You're actually going to have to share. When I debated Richard Spencer, the white nationalist, I said, bruh, get over it. We ain't going nowhere. I'm trying to paint this picture for you because what we have to confront is this reality that somehow that's y'all thing, I'm good. See, that's why this room looks the way it looks. Oh, it does. Because see, let me help you out. When Reverend William Barber and the folks started Moral Mondays, it looked just like this room. There were a few whites, largely black. They were discussing issues, and people saw the issues through a racial prism. Then all of a sudden, white folks went, our hospital closed it down. Then they said, whoa, wait, hold up. These cuts to teachers affecting us. Then they said the cuts to police and fire. All of a sudden, folks saw the things that Reverend Barber and repairs of the breach and Moral Mondays were fighting for. They began to say, that's us too. And then all of a sudden, Moral Mondays had a little more color to it. And Moral Mondays started looking not like chocolate ice cream, but like Neapolitan. Reverend Barber told me this story 2 years ago in Las Vegas at NAACP convention. He's at a parade. He said, a white man walked up to him with a Confederate flag around his neck, tears running down his eyes, saying, Reverend Barber, thank you for fighting our hospitals. Reverend Barber said, I'm going to get that flag off around his neck one day. He said, but the fact that he could acknowledge that our fight for Medicaid expansion was about saving the very hospital where he could go to meant that he understood that we are in this thing together. See, we have to somehow begin to get folks to understand that when you talk about civil rights, when you talk about voting rights, this is not just a black thing. In this very state, they moved voting locations off of large campuses because they did not want young folks to vote. That wasn't, they removed the early voting location off the campus of Duke. I ain't seen that many brothers at Duke. They removed those places. They made it harder. Remove the law where the folks could register at 17. By the time they turn 18, they can vote. Remove the area, remove the law that allowed for you to teach the education of civics and voting. Well, why am I saying all of that? Because voting ain't a black thing. Voting is supposed to be an American thing. We saw in Wisconsin. Where voter ID laws made it difficult for whites who were 70 and 80 to vote, who no longer drove, who said, man, I can't find my birth certificate. I'm 80. That actually happened. So now all of a sudden, when you begin to talk about these critical issues, I'm trying to make the point that when you look at what we are facing in this country, it is not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's whether or not people who have been greatly impacted by those with the 1% will continue to buy into the nonsense that somehow they are in the same boat as us. No, stop falling for the okie doke, because some folks are getting played. I'm painting this picture because the exact same thing happened during slavery. Plantation owners convinced illiterate whites, we in this thing together, you got to fight for us, it's a state rights thing, and they said, yeah, you're right. We're like, no, you're not right. Because the reality is here, after slavery, those very same illiterate whites in those states, frankly, who did not have an education, benefited from freed slaves who then went in the state legislatures and put into the Constitution for publicly financed education. You don't believe me, just go check it yourself. James D. Anderson writes in his book, The Education of Blacks in the South, 1860 to 1935, that freed slaves made it possible for publicly financed education when that was not the plan. He said planters, those who were rich, remember, landowners were allowed to vote in America, not everybody. The reason you have the Electoral College is because landowners want to maintain control. I'm sorry, I read a few books. We are allowing ourselves to get caught up in a game that has always benefited those with wealth and those without wealth. It does not matter if you're black or white or Latino. It's a question of, do you have money or not? You cannot tell me somehow somebody can run for president, call themselves blue collar. I'm going to fight for the common man who's been left behind and picks folks in a cabinet collectively worth $14 billion, and somehow they care about the common man and woman. I'm sorry, Willie Foo-Foo left the building. See, I'm just trying to get us to understand that at some point we have to be willing to rise up and stand our ground. We have to be willing to say, you know what, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not stupid. I'm not buying that nonsense. See, somebody has to be willing to say that you cannot tell me you want to make America great again when even your own daughter is still making her products outside the country. I'm sorry. See, I know somebody is saying, but man, you know, this ain't got nothing to do with Dr. King. Oh, yes, it does. Because do you understand, Dr. King was talking about the issue of a guaranteed income. He was talking about the issue of health care. He was talking about the issue of workers' rights. When he was shot and killed in Memphis, he was fighting for sanitation workers. Many of those same sanitation workers who still work today and still don't have the benefits he was fighting for in '68. Do you understand? He was leading a poor people's campaign where he was going through Georgia and West Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina and Mississippi and Alabama and Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas, bringing these people to the nation's capital, putting them on the grounds there where you're going to see folks tomorrow on the National Mall. In '68, King was trying to bring them with the Poor People's Campaign so Congress could actually see what poor America looks like. You don't believe me? Fine. Go look up Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina's amendment called the Clyburn Amendment, where he wants any bill that's passed in Congress for 10% of that money to go to counties where 20% or more of the people have lived below the poverty line for at least 30 years. Two-thirds of those 400 plus counties sit in Republican congressional districts. Oh, I'm sorry. See, we've gotten used to media painting a picture that if you are poor in America and you have food stamps, you look like me. No, boo, that's not how it is. We have to understand that we can't allow ourselves to keep getting played. You got folks right now in America celebrating Republicans trying to get rid of Obamacare, and they saying, get rid of it, thank God I got the Affordable Care Act. It's the same damn thing. I'm painting this picture because I need folks to understand that when you're getting played, recognize when you're getting played. I use the phrase all the time, game, recognize game. And so what we have to contend with is whether or not we are going to allow ourselves to repeat exactly what has happened in history in this state, in South Carolina, in other states, where folks somehow are pitting black against white, black against Latino, white against Latino, when the fact of the matter is, where I come from, broke is broke. If you look at in this state, if white kids are not getting educated, black kids are not getting educated, that means you get a public school system that's simply not educating our children. So why in the world are we going to play games with people who somehow want to say, no, our school is better than yours? No, it's not. You got the same bad school as we do. If you talk about Medicaid expansion, whether you got a rural hospital or inner city hospital, if it closes down, those people don't have the ability to be able to be cared for. And do understand, you still have a national health care plan, but it's called an emergency room, which you got to pay for because the law says you have to care for them. And guess what? When they can't pay, taxes go up. You're going to pay either way. I'm laying all of this out because we have to make a decision as to whether or not we are going to leave here the same way we came, or whether or not we are going to use our time and our talents to be able to create the kind of fusion politics where we begin to say, what's your issue and your issue and your issue? How can we all get together and work to fight to change these things together so we all improve, so it's the betterment for all people, not just a select few? See, I'm bothered. I'm bothered when folk are sitting here angry, upset, depressed, fearful, as opposed to what's going on. Because see, here's the real challenge, especially to all the folks in the room who I call post-civil rights movement babies. And what I mean by that is King was killed April 4th, 1968, so I'll use his death really as the marker. Anybody born after April 4th, 68, I'm going to call a post-civil rights movement baby. See, if we really want to be honest, a whole bunch of us, we've had it easy. We really haven't had to fight for much. I mean, all right, Jenna 6, fine. Okay, Black Lives Matter, gotcha. Trayvon Martin, gotcha. Okay, you might have done some stuff in the 80s when it came to apartheid, gotcha. But if we really want to be honest, we haven't put a lot at stake. If we want to be honest. But when I begin to look at what's happening right now in this country, I sort of laugh. Somebody said, Roland, why are you laughing? I said, because see, now we're about to see what folks made of. See, now we're about to see whether or not folks are going to put something on the line and say, oh, no, I'm not going to allow us to regress and go backwards. No, we are going to keep moving forward. So now the real question is whether or not many of us are going to leave our comfortable dorm rooms, our comfortable homes, take off our comfortable shoes, and be willing to get in this game. Because let me be clear, as long as people of conscience, so-called conscience, stay unconscious, then you're going to see a fundamental problem. As long as we have people right now on jobs, whether you're university presidents, or whether you're professors, or whether you work at the bank or the post office, whether you work at City Hall somewhere else, the question you got to ask is, are you present or do you have presence? If you're walking into work every single day seeing income inequality, seeing folks get hired based upon a good old boy system, seeing how promotions are being made, and you say nothing, you are a problem. It don't matter if you got a D or an R in front of your name. You see, I ain't never liked parking lot militants. Ask the folk, they talk a lot of trash in the parking lot about what's happening inside. Yet when they go inside, they don't say nothing. See, y'all got to understand something. I spent 6 years at CNN, and the same brother y'all saw on TV was the same brother y'all saw off TV. I gave him hell. Because, see, let me be clear. I start every job with the premise, I'm going to get fired anyway. And there's nothing worse than getting fired, and now you're at home mad. You came in early, you stayed late, you didn't take days off, you were loyal, and they still said, well, we got to make some cuts. It's all about the bottom line. Maybe here's your 2 weeks. They don't care about your kid being in school. They don't care about your house note. They don't care about your car note. You got to go. And see, now you upset because there was stuff that was happening. You wanted to challenge and say something. You never said anything. Let me be clear. I ain't never had that problem. I said everything I had to say while I was there. I could sit at home happy saying I gave him hell while I was there. What I'm really calling for is an attitude adjustment, and that is, are we going to have a generation of people in 2017 who are going to stop playing this game of pimping MLK's legacy, and whether or not they're going to say, I want to follow in his footsteps? I need to know whether or not we have a generation of people who are going to challenge themselves, and whether or not they are going to say, I need to stand up for something today for the next generation. See, I got a problem with all we continue to do today. We celebrate all the folks I mentioned earlier, but the question is, what will they say about you 30 years from now? No, really, I need everybody on the front row, the back row, the left and the right to think about this question: what will they say about me 30 years from now? What will they say about me in terms of what I did on this campus 30 years from now? What will they say about me on my job, in my church, in my neighborhood? What will they say? Will they say they simply passed through and they were present? Or will they say they made their presence felt? See, that's an individual challenge. See, now it requires you to put in some work. It now requires you not sitting back like a spectator, cheering him on, looking at old newsreels. It now says, I must be one of those people who actually got out of my home and did something. It means whether or not I'm going to challenge when I see issues on this campus or in this community, and whether or not I'm going to say, because I'm a part of it, I can make a difference. It does not matter if you are white. It does not matter if you are black. It does not matter if a Viola Liuzzo can leave her home in Michigan and her husband and her children and travel to Alabama and help folks register to vote and give her life. Now her children are living through their mama being a martyr. She never intended to go to Alabama to be killed, but it actually happened. We wouldn't be talking about her today if she stayed at home. So you got to answer the question, what am I going to do? What am I really going to do? What are the issues and concerns on this campus, in this community that I have? And am I going to just look at other people stepping up and me benefiting from their work, or am I going to get in the game? What will your grandchildren say when they say, Papa, where were you? And you won't have any evidence of photos or video of you being there to make something happen. Oh, I know there's some people sitting in this room who are black, who are white, who are saying, look, dog, I'm 60. I ain't in that post-civil rights movement. I was born before that. I'm good. I put in my time. That's young folks stuff. But you still breathing. As long as there's breath in your body, you have a voice. Because when we look back on history, Fannie Lou Hamer wasn't young. Rosa Parks wasn't young. E.D. Nixon wasn't young. None of those folks were young. King, yeah. John Lewis, yeah. Farmer, yeah. They were young. But not everybody was young. Everybody can do something to change the condition of our cities and our states and our nation if we have people who want to be individuals of conscience. But that's your decision. Only you can decide that. Only you can challenge yourself as to whether or not you want to be a difference maker. And if we have more people who are willing to fight to change a system that is unjust, then the quicker we will be able to achieve our goal. Because no longer, and let me be clear, don't have another MOK program and have some little kids walk on stage and recite, "I have a dream." I know some of y'all are saying, why? Because if you recite the "I have a dream" part, you better read the top 2/3 of the speech when he talked about a check stamp, insufficient funds, the bank of injustice, police brutality when it came to voting. See, the "I have a dream" part for church folks, that's the hoop part of a sermon. You ain't got a sermon unless you got some scripture. You don't have a sermon unless you have a thesis. And so you can get excited about the hoop part. I was asked a question earlier, what about King's dream? I said, no, I need you to wake up, brother. Don't get focused on somebody, because see, that's the nice part. That's the easy part. That's the stuff that floats in the airport. No, but the hard stuff is what he mentioned earlier in the speech. That's what we have to focus on. And the reason I started by calling it "Stand Your Ground," because you've got to be willing to fight for something even when everybody else is unwilling to fight. The reason I mentioned 2 Samuel 23 is because the people of Israel were on the run. And as they were on the run, they were sitting here traveling, and they passed a field of lentils. And they said, you know what? That's an inconsequential field. We ain't trying to fight for that. We're going to keep on going. But one of David's mighty men, Shammah, said, no, if God gave it to us, I'm going to fight for it. And so Shammah stood there and said, I'm going to stand here and defend this field of lentils, and I'm going to take on anybody who comes at me. He fought with his left hand and his right hand and slayed everybody was there. Ask yourself the question today, what is your field of lentils? Is it children? Is it health care? Is it voting? Is it civil rights? Is it women's rights? Exactly what is your field of lentils? Are you going to be modern day Shammah where you're willing to stand and fight anybody with left and right, even if you get killed because you say, I will fight for what is right? You have to decide whether you're going to do that today. And if you decide to fight, then you will tell the enemy, I don't care who you are, how many of them you come at me, you're going to have to take me out because I am not moving. And if we have a generation of people who are willing to fight, then we're going to see change, then we'll see things happen, then we will see systems fall down because the people, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, straight, gay, church, atheists, don't matter, will say we are willing to stand up for this Constitution we so-called believe in. And if you do that, trust me, folks will fear you, and then you will win. And I'll end it this way. I'll keep telling you, I don't care what happens. I don't care how tough it is, how difficult it is in this city, this campus, this state, in this country. You tell the people who want to come against you what my fraternity brother, Vertner Woodson Tandy, said in 1937, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
name is Amanda Fitzpatrick. I am the main anchor at WWAY TV News, ABC, CBS. Thank you. We're on ABC, CBS, and CW, so I got a lot of shows that I do, and I'm very fortunate to be able to step away from that role tonight to be here to listen to this amazing man and journalist that I respect. It's not often that you get to moderate or do a Q&A with someone that you are familiar with, that you personally know. I can remember out of college watching Roland Martin, and he was such an advocate then, before the flashy lights. So for that, I honor you for that. Tonight, we are going to ask you some questions. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we're going to open up the floor to the audience to allow a few of you to also ask questions. You spoke about so many key issues tonight, and I'm sure there were some people that were like, amen, and there were some people that were kind of like, a little uncomfortable. How important is it? That's Roland. How important is it as a journalist to make people uncomfortable, to speak the truth that is often not heard?
Well, I'm not interested in being somebody's cheerleader. I mean, it's about accountability. It's about truth. It's about honesty. And it's about challenging folks. Earlier today, Trump's press secretary is Sean Spicer. I know Sean well. A great guy. I've done stuff with him for Wounded Warriors. And he was so he had a news conference today. He was chastising Democrats for holding up the nominations of Trump's cabinet. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, did you forget the Supreme Court pick the president made last year? Did you forget the 100 people who are not going to be on the federal bench because Republicans held up the president's nominations? I said, Sean, I know your job is to spin, but it's not my job to let you forget. And see, that's... But it's also no different because what's going to happen is tomorrow. So we're not live tomorrow because where I do my show is from NBC News Channel. And today's show, Lester Holt, all those folks are coming in. So they're taking up all the studios. And we were like, okay, we good. We'll just tape it. And so they're doing their inauguration coverage. So we taped our show. And I can tell y'all tomorrow's going to be some mad black folks because we had a discussion on my show that we taped yesterday about 8 years of President Obama's legacy. And we talked about those things that were good. We praised those things that were excellent. But the reality when it came to housing plans, his administration was a failure, specifically for black folks. I had Housing Secretary Sean Donovan on my show 3 different times. Every time he came on, he had a new plan. I said, you know, that means the old plan failed. When it comes to, this administration has not been good to HBCUs. The Parent Plus loan greatly impacted, left some 28,000 kids not able to come back to college because they changed those procedures. Trust me, there's some people who are going to be really upset because we are going to have that conversation, but that's not my problem. My issue is always tell the truth, and if you got a problem with what I have to say, well, then you change what I'm talking about, then I can do something that's going to sound better. And that's really what the job is. And so that's why when I'm on MSNBC or ABC This Week or Fox News or any of these networks, I'm not going to play the game. And if you invite me back, okay, I got my own show.
Talk about when you mentioned Lester Holt and NBC, taking over the studios. There was a time when we didn't have any news on BET, any news on TV One. We didn't have a black voice. When you Google your name, civil rights activist comes up. Are you surprised to see that along with journalists?
Here's the deal. That's not what I am. I am a journalist. I'm a journalist in the tradition. Frederick Douglass owned a newspaper. Ida B. Wells Barnett wrote about lynching. Robert Abbott founded the Chicago Defender. John Sinstadt took it over after him. You had Ethel Payne. You had Alice Dunnigan. You had Louis Martin. You had Chuck Stone. You had one of the great documentaries was done out there called Soldiers Without Swords on the black press. He talked about the importance of black newspapers. Abbott and the Defender leading the Great Migration. These were truth seekers, but these were also people who were about how do you hold power accountable. They were not willing to be quiet or shy. Look, I as a member of the National Association of Black Journalists, as a former 2-time board member, to sit at the feet of the Vernon Jarretts of the world, who worked at the Chicago Defender, who a paper I later ran as executive editor and general manager. Understanding that history, That's what our role is. And so the role of, and let me be clear so folks have to understand something. My role is different than Lester Holt's role. Now, let me also explain the distinction here. That is, Lester Holt, NBC Nightly News. Lester's a great guy. Lester, for that role, in terms of what he represents, that's fine. In the black press, we are advocates for black people. So I'm not playing or tap dancing or sort of, well, I might ask an occasional black question. No, I walk in black. I sit down black. I leave black. And so what I'm saying is, so my questions will be specific to our community. If you are a woman and you have a magazine or a show or a radio show that targets women, I suspect that's probably what you're going to talk about. And nobody complains about that. And so I am advocating. And again, when I say you can't get caught up in other folks' drama, March 14th, 2014, I flew into Raleigh. Radio 1 every year has their the big women's event, 20,000 people. What's the name of it? There you go, Women's Empowerment. There you go. So that year, I was doing one of the town halls, and I had a session. And so I land, get to the hotel. I've got a few hours. I pick up the Wall Street Journal, front page story. Talked about in 2013, there were $23.09 billion in small business loans that were handed out. African Americans got $385 million, or 1.7%. I see that, and then, of course, in the 2008, the last year, President Bush, black folks got 8.2%. The reason for the big drop-off was because of the home foreclosure crisis. For African Americans, we don't have the necessary revenue built up, so the only collateral we have is our home. No home, no loan, no business. And so I immediately see that story. I fire off an email to the White House saying, I need somebody from the SBA on Tom Joyner and on my TV One show Monday. They get back, hey, can't do Monday, can we do Tuesday? Fine, Tuesday. Then all of a sudden they stop answering emails. This goes on for 90 days. I tell the Obama administration, let me be clear. I could be talking about sports and I'm going to kick y'all ass on these loans. No. Let me be perfectly clear. That's exactly what I said. Actually, I said it a little rougher than that, but I ain't going to tell y'all what I really said. I said, I don't care what I'm talking about in every speech, on every show, on every day. I will bring this up. I advise y'all to deal with me on this topic. So when we had an off-the-record meeting with the president, yes, I hit him up on this issue. And I said point blank. And then, it was off-the-record conversation, but whatever. And so I made it perfectly clear, your SBA not responding. Well, let's just say 2 weeks later, I had a meeting with the head of the SBA. And when I went in with her, they would like take a picture. I was like, I ain't here for that. I said, how more black folks gonna get loans? See, again, other journalists who work in mainstream media, they simply might just ask the question. No, I'm there to demand, are we gonna get more loans? And so my role is a different role. And let me also say this, and this is critically important because I don't think people really appreciate this here. The power, and this is just understanding history. White supremacy has been so powerful in that it has, one, created this notion in the, first of all, white supremacy means superior, supreme over someone else. But you even have African Americans who have been the victims of white supremacy when even many of us think that what is ours is less than. I don't think some folks heard me. Less than. I've had people stop me and say, brother, when you gonna get a show? I said, well, I'm on TV every day. And they said, no, I mean a real show. And I go, I'm sorry, what do you mean a real show? I said, we got cameras, a set, a teleprompter, a script. I said, what do you mean? He said, no, I mean like on a CNN or MSNBC. There are people who believe that because my show is on TV One, that, well, it's not quite the same as the other shows. And I had to remind him, as I mentioned earlier, I said, well, when Lester Holt comes to D.C. and to do the NBC Nightly News, and they want the Capitol in the background, he literally sits in the same chair I sit in. The same chair, same camera, same wall, same monitors. When you see Greta Van Susten's show now on MSNBC, when y'all see her, that's the same studio. The exact same studio. So I had to remind this brother that no, this is real. But here's the other thing that this is critically important. And this is nothing against all the rest of these folks. You can watch Don Lemon on CNN. That's fine. But Don don't control his show. Don does not determine the guest on his show. Don does not determine the order of his show. I do. I determine the topics, the order of the show, how long they get to talk, who the guests are, who comes on, who doesn't come on, what we focus on. The reason I'm saying that because I'm the host and managing editor. Why am I saying that? Because I get to control the process. I would much rather have a situation of having a show on TV One where I get to control the narrative and have the power to also shape the news as opposed to simply read the news somewhere else.
Which definitely, kind of goes back to my question is we need more of you.
Well,
to
get
for
more,
people that are watching,
more have to watch. See, first of all, success creates success. And Hollywood is a copycat. You do a movie about baseball and it makes $100 million, there will be 30 baseball movies next year. Just how it is. And so understand it's also capacity. And so you have to, first of all, you have to create it. You also have to have the patience to allow it to happen. One of BET's problem is that they'll do a show and then they'll be unhappy a month later, 2 months later, it's off the air. No, you have to give it time to grow. Last year, we saw growth every single quarter in every demo, and we were up 52% by the end of the year. Well, imagine if we didn't hit those numbers in the first year. They said, well, take it off. We don't want to spend that money. No, you have to actually do that. 60 Minutes was not a hit show the moment it launched. It built up to that. And so that's what you see right now. But I will say this here. BT has a special, I think, tonight on the Obama legacy. I know this for a fact because the brothers and sisters at BT told me this. The reason they still have even a news division is because of me. See, again, you got to step back and begin to say, wait a minute. So in 2009, we launched Washington Watch, Sunday morning show. BT was going to get rid of all their news people. We went to Essence Music Festival, July 2009, announced we were launching this show 2009. They re-signed all those people. And then every time, so for instance, when we said we're going to do a town hall on Freddie Gray in Baltimore, BET announced one. Then when we said we're going to go live with the coverage of Muhammad Ali's funeral, BET announced it. When we announced we were going to take News One Now as first of all, they later launched a Sunday show with Ed Gordon, response to ours. We launched News One Now in November 2013. They re-signed more of their people. So the fact that those people, and they literally say, Roland, we thank you every single day. Because every time you make an announcement of something new you doing, we get signed for a new contract. We appreciate you.
I'm going to ask another question, and then I'm going to give you a chance to ask your questions, so get them ready. You talked in your address about something very important. You talked about people doing something. Just you being on TV is doing something. You doing the work that you're doing is doing something. How can people that are going to get in their cars and drive back home and go to work tomorrow at the bank or the school or the janitor or whatever their job is or their profession, the college student, what can they do?
Well, the first thing, I get this question all over the country. People stop me. I got this a lot after Obama was elected. People say, man, I want to do something. I don't know where to start. And I'll go, all right, what do you care about? And they go, what do you mean? I say, well, there's something in your life you care about. What is it? Is it crime? Is it high school dropouts? Is it education? What is it? And then, so I had a brother who was a flight attendant on an airplane. He said, man, he said, I care about education and my kids. I said, okay. I said, are you in the PTA? He said, no. I said, start there. I said, then I want you to join, then I want you to recruit other parents to join, and that's how you are able to begin to change what's happening in your school. See, here's what happens. What happens is, part of the problem is, many of us we believe that the problem is too big. Okay? You heard me talk about this whole point earlier, why you don't have more white students sitting in this room. Okay, so here's what your university leadership should do. You don't sit here and say, oh my goodness, we want to try to get as many students as possible. No, what you do next year is you say, we're going to go to 3 organizations, and we want those 3 organizations to bring their members to this event. Or you begin to say, we're going to go to fraternities and sororities, or we're going to go to this particular event. What happens is the problems are so large, we get consumed by the largeness of the problem, and we talk ourselves out of doing something because we say the problem is too large. When I break it down like this here, you cannot have a great America without great states. Great states, so great North Carolina requires great cities. So Wilmington needs to be a great city, which means Wilmington needs to have great neighborhoods. Great neighborhoods need to have great blocks. Great blocks have to have great streets. Great streets have to have great houses on the street. In order to have great houses, plural, you got to start with one house, which means you start with one house means there has to be one person in one house who then says, we are going to do things differently from this point forward. So it goes from person to house, house to street, street to block, block to neighborhood, neighborhood to city, city, state, state, nation. So if you go back, and I talked about the Montgomery bus boycott, this is the mistake when we don't study our own history. We all know the Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days. Montgomery bus boycott was only supposed to last 1 day. It was never planned 381 days. It was supposed to be 1 day. 50,000 black folks didn't get on buses. They said, cool, let's try this tomorrow. Will this hold up? If you go back and look up the Montgomery Improvement Association's initial demands, the initial demand did not include in segregated busing. The demands were treat black bus riders with respect. Can you hire a few more black bus riders? That's what the initial demands. As they kept protesting and not riding, then it went, we want to end this. 381 days later, the U.S. Supreme Court's rules segregated busing unconstitutional. Now I need y'all to understand that. A 1-day bus boycott led to a Supreme Court decision that ruled segregated busing across America unconstitutional. 1 day. Now, a 1-day boycott leads to 381 days, leads to that constitutional ruling, which then leads to what's next. They then said, you had the Albany movement in Albany, Georgia. You had the Nashville movement. Then all of a sudden you had what happened in North Carolina A&T, where only 4 college freshmen decided to walk out and integrate a lunch counter. They didn't ask anybody's permission. They didn't have a meeting. Can we get everybody together, all the stakeholders? Can we get all consensus? 4 students went down. Then they protested, and then they went back the next day. More students were there. If you go back and study the history, you will see that literally in a matter of weeks, the actions of 4 North Carolina A&T students spread like wildfire all across the South, and that thing skipped from where they were to the next city, and the next city, and the next city, and literally in a span of 2 or 3 months, lunch counters in the South were desegregated because 4 students said, we're going to go to that one counter. If you stop thinking that the problem is so large, you must break that thing down as small as possible and say, if I care about high school dropouts, don't worry, oh goodness, can we please keep all of them from dropping out? You can't keep all dropping out unless you keep one dropping out. But let's say you only keep one dropping out. celebrate the keeping of one, and then say, next year we're going to do two. See, what happens is we choose to do something. We say, oh my goodness. So I hear all the time, man, Roland, this whole place should have been packed. No. The focus should be, what will you do to ensure that's packed up there next year? See, I think totally different. I don't worry about who's not here. I talk to who's here and challenge them as an individual to go out and say, just bring back one. Think about it. If every person in here came next year, and I asked, matter of fact, this is what I'm going to ask you. And so, what a photographer, come here. The photographer, come here. Where are you? Come here. See, since I'm going to go ahead and do this. So the lights all the way up, come here. Come here. Okay, I want you to get your wide, I need your wide lens. I need you to take a picture of this audience. Everybody smile, he taking the picture, y'all. I will challenge all of you, and Chancellor, you're here, and so I'm gonna lead this on, this your responsibility. Come back, man, I'm not done with you.
I told him he could leave, I didn't know. Come back.
Do you also have video on that, right? Yeah, but you're gonna use it right now, though. Do you know how to use it? Come over here, I can show you how to use it. I shoot video too. You got it? Put it on, come here.
No
come
pressure.
Here. Come here. All right, you see this over here? See that button right there, your red button? Where's your red button? That's your recording button. Now, go over here and shoot me telling you what I'm about to say. Your challenge.
He's not ready yet.
Your challenge. You not ready? Lord. You got it? This is your challenge. All I'm going to ask you to do is bring one person next year. I want each person in here to bring one person the opposite race. One. That's all I'm asking you. Bring one. I ain't say 5. One. Now here's the deal. What that means is we're going to find out if you black, if you actually know. No, I need y'all to follow me here. Because this is one of the fundamental problems with race in America. One of the fundamental problems with race in America is that we live and we exist in what I call involuntary situations. This is a public institution. You don't control who comes here, but you do control who you have lunch with. You do control who you eat dinner with. And one of the fundamental problems that we have in this country is that many of us who are black have literally no relationships with anybody who's white. And many of us who are white outside of school or work have no relationships with anybody who is black. Reverend Jim Wallace says when he goes to people's houses, he looks at their pictures, their DVD collections, their book collections, and their art collections to see how diverse they are. So think about this for a second. If the majority of the folks in this room, you're black, if you brought one white person here next year, 1, you would have standing only. 2, you would have a totally diversified room. 3, you now would have the makings of fusion politics. That's how simple this is. So no matter what you want to be involved in, think small, celebrate your success along the way, and build from there. But don't think you're going to get this mass agreement to make it happen.
All right. We'd like to take audience questions. Can he leave, Roland?
Yeah, he can leave now.
Okay, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. That was hard. Okay.
You got to have that video so when you do it next year, you can say, see, he challenged us to do it, and we did it. And y'all put it on Twitter, and I'll say good job.
All right. We're going to take 2 questions. Were you standing to ask a question? Okay.
What's your question?
Is there a microphone we can get to her?
We can hear her. Don't worry about it.
Go ahead. Yell. Yeah.
Is it
Gotcha. So what happened was Bob Johnson, co-founder of BET, was on the show, and he was talking. He had a meeting with Trump, and we were talking about black interest. And I said we also have groups that actually are funding our own politics as well. And so I am meeting with his staff to actually organize that, to bring those very folks to the table. And so hopefully we'll have that meeting in the next 30 to 60 days. But that is happening. That is happening. Easy. I'm going to say it on TV.
Watch TV One.
You'll see it. I don't hide nothing.
Remember what he said? You got to watch. So keep it going.
You got a question up there? Go. Okay. No, it's necessary, and it's there. But we have to actually demand it. First of all, it happens. I mean, there are, again, when you see attacks on HBCUs, we're there. I mean, we're there. When you begin to see, again, largely, if you have attacks on voting rights, we're there. But what we have to do is, see, you can't be scared to call somebody out who isn't showing up. And that's part of the problem. So part of the problem is that we want to play nice. I'm not interested in playing nice. The reason I said what I had to say about the Democratic Party and income inequality is because I don't want to hear, like for instance, right now, there's only one black chief of staff on any Democratic senator staff. And that person just got hired by Kamala Harris, who just got elected. So we had Spencer Overton for the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. There are 4 top positions that each senatorial staff has: chief of staff, communications director, legislative director, and I forgot the 4th one. Republicans actually have more black staffers in the top 4 positions than Democrats. So when the Joint Center called them out on it and made it public, all of a sudden folks start scurrying. But that's what you have to do. You have to call folks out. What happens is, and this is one of the fundamental mistakes, and this is why I said, when I said I walk into the room black, I sit down black, I walk out black. I don't go into anything saying, well, they're a Democrat, I'm gonna let them off the hook. Oh, hell no. In fact, if you are benefiting more than anybody else from black votes, oh, I'm gonna give you even more hell. See, but that's part of the problem. Too many of us are timid and afraid. We don't like. Let's just be honest. A lot of us don't like confrontation. I like confrontation. I revel in confrontation. I revel in making folks uncomfortable, because the only way you are going to change anything is you have to be willing to challenge people and not let them off the hook. Look, all these folks are mad at Steve Harvey for meeting with Donald Trump. They mad at Jim Brown and mad at MLK III. Here's why they mad. Because they came out and they were not authoritative in what they talked about. They didn't say, look, I put this on the table, this on the table, this on the table, this on the table, and said, I expect a response and a policy from you. Let me know when it happens. And so I had a Republican, Gianno Caldwell, on my show, and he said, well, Roland, he said, if anybody black meet with Trump, they're gonna get killed. I said, I won't. And he said, yes, you will. I said, I'll bet you $10,000 right here. And I did. I said, if I meet with Trump, and when I walk out that meeting, folks gonna say, oh yeah, he held it down, he good. See, it's what you have to say while you're in the room. The problem is, we got folks who get in the room who get scared. Now, I'm going to just say this one here, because this actually happened. Republicans were holding up, confirming Loretta Lynch as Attorney General. Y'all, she got confirmed 2 previous times, unanimous. This was no big deal. This was all politics. Well, one of the folks who had not publicly said how he was going to vote was Thad Cochran of Mississippi. Now, Thad Cochran was going to lose in the primary to a Tea Party candidate until black voters in Mississippi crossed over party lines to vote for him in the runoff. That's how he won. So me, Jeff Johnson, Reverend Jamal Bryant, we led a group of black men to Capitol Hill called Brothers for Loretta Lynch. And it was amazing, y'all, because they were freaking all out. They ain't see that many black people. Because remember, the Million Man March took place. The Million Man March took place on a weekend. We were there when they were in session. Boy, I was like, y'all got that many cops for us? What's up? But here's what's interesting. So we go to the office of Senator Thad Cochran. But this is also what I mean by when you understand one. We go to his office, and here's the deal. I had a brother who was from Mississippi in the front. I said, because you're a constituent. They got to respond to a constituent. So we walk in. We said, we want to meet with Senator Thad Cochran. And so the woman at the desk, she said, oh, well, his schedule's really full. We said, we appreciate that, but we're not leaving. And so there were about 30 of us. Now, y'all know, you see 30 black men. At one time, people start fidgeting. Let's just be straight up. So we stood there. So then 3 other staffers came out, and they said, hey, sorry, we don't have much time. And then there was another group. It was a black woman sitting there. She said, we have a meeting with him. We have 20 minutes. We'll give them 10 of our minutes. They said, well, no, we can't do that. So one of the other brothers in our group, so that one of the folks came up to him and he said, hey, can y'all, there's a conference room, can y'all actually just step out in the hallway? And this other guy says, okay, I understand the room is getting packed, we'll step out. And I was talking, I overheard him, I said, excuse me, we're not leaving. One, he wasn't leader of the group. I was, so he didn't get to make that decision. We didn't leave. Finally, 10 minutes later, they said, okay, Senator Thad Cochran will meet with y'all in 10 minutes in the conference room right next door. I said, Senator Cochran, not his staff. I said, I ain't dealing with staff. So he about 90 years old. So I don't think he even knew we were even there. So I'm just being, y'all, the average age of a U.S. Senator is almost 75. Lord Jesus. Can we get some younger U.S. Senators? I'm just saying. So, but I'm just trying to understand you, to tell you how you challenge. So he comes in, and this is exactly what I said, and it's on Periscope. Y'all can go look it up, because I actually streamed it. We weren't supposed to, but I break rules. I said, Senator Cochran, we're glad to see you. I said, let me be clear while we're here. You are not here without black people. You would have lost if black folks did not cross over and vote for you. We expect you to vote for Loretta Lynch. What's your decision? And he said, I haven't decided. He said, no, I made my decision. I'm not going to reveal it yet. I said, we expect your decision to be you're going to vote for Loretta Lynch. And we'll be back if it's not. The next day, he voted for Loretta Lynch. I'm saying that it's because you can't be afraid to challenge power. And when you challenge power, power then has to either respond with power or wilt under the pressure. And if power responds with power, then you bring more power. That's how you supply pressure. That's how you must do it in this state, in this city, on this campus. It doesn't matter, because that's how things change in America.
Thank you. In closing on this session, I would like to say thank you, Roland Martin, for your insight, your power. You feel empowered, right, everyone? And I think we can all self-evaluate, each and every one of us, and write down or at least take a charge to what small steps we can take, because I think what you painted is the perfect picture. We can't fix everything.
And then some of y'all are trying to figure, well, he said it. First of all, writing it down is biblical. Habakkuk chapter 2.
That's true.
Look it up. write the vision down, make it plain.
Yes.
But then it also says, wait on God to do what God does. So that's biblical. So anybody in the Bible Belt who said, well, I don't know why he said it, fine. The word says it, follow the word then.
I want to add that I think last time I saw you at the National Association of Black Journalists, which is a very important group, I was anchoring in Charlotte and came from Dallas. For those of you that have read my bio, I was reporting in Dallas for 5 years, and I kept praying to anchor, and I wrote it down, and I'm anchoring 5 shows right now. And some days, some nights, I'm like, 5 shows.
See, you had a specific prayer. You're like, Lord, I shouldn't have been that specific.
Right.
Should have prayed for 1 show.
I was driving over here tonight, and I was kind of tired.
Hold on, you doing 5 shows, you getting 5 checks? Okay, you need to change
my
your prayer.
reward is in heaven. No, I'm getting, I'm good.
need to change your prayer. Because I got 5 jobs, I get 5 checks. I'm just saying.
But I will say this, for those of you that have been watching, I've had a lot of people come up to me. We've done MLK stories every night. My first story when I got here was the NC Black Film Festival. So, you know, unlike some people, I do use my job and my talents to be able to give back. So whether I get paid $1 million or $5, it's important for me to tell stories that are in my community that are positive.
That's right.
So I am grateful that I got a chance to be here, and we are continuing that. I want to leave on a note mentioning that we will have a Black Month. February is going to be Black History Month special that I am doing. My producer came up to me and said, we need to do something. So I've had people send in stories of people in Wilmington that are unknown or that are known but don't get the spotlight.
There you go.
Because they're local.
But do this here. Do that.
Yes.
Do that same special in March, in April.
Oh, yeah.
In May, in June.
Roland.
July. August.
Time out.
September,
Time out. You're not going to play me
October.
in my town. Roland,
I'm saying.
no, but Roland, were you not there at my NABJ awards ceremony when I got 4 awards for the National Association of Black Journalists for Black Excellence Reporting?
I got you.
That were year-round in Dallas?
You.
Okay.
I'm just saying, but what I'm saying is what happens is Black history is American history.
But I'm trying to get stories for the next week.
I got you.
Thank you, sir.
But let's do something in November.
So like I was
December.
saying, like I was saying, if you have any stories, we want to do it for next week because it's coming up, and I want to get your stories told. So please see me after this event. And thank you so much, Roland Martin.
Appreciate
for
it.
coming.
Y'all watch TV One's News 1 Hour, 7 a.m. every day.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Penny Spicer Sidbury, your first African-American city clerk here in Wilmington. Past history, your first North Carolina Isaiah Festival, the largest festival in the state of North Carolina president. And also was the first African-American to work for a company called the Committee of 100, which is now Wilmington Industrial Development. And we recruited businesses from all across the country to Wilmington. I'm very proud of that, but I could not have done that without what Dr. Martin just spoke about. So I want to say good evening, and I want to first say thank you to the great chancellor of this great university, Reverend Sean Palmer, Director of Upperman African American Cultural Center, Dr. Gillian, UNCW Chief Executive Officer, and UNCW's Martin Luther King Celebration, and the Board of Trustees for hosting this awesome program and for inviting little old me, the country girl from Seabreeze, to bring greetings on behalf of our city. I want to say to Mr. Martin, our speaker for this memorable occasion tonight, I want to thank him for being a trailblazer. I want him to know that I bring greetings from our mayor, Mayor Sappho, warm wishes, and pray that he will come again to our great city. His message tonight, Stand Your Ground, speaks volumes as we pay tribute to the late Dr. Martin Luther King. It was powerful and inspiring to me, and I am sure to the audience as well, but especially for the struggle that Dr. Martin Luther King endured and worked so hard to accomplish, and to leave a legacy that would inspire and encourage so many people to stand. Dr. King's legacy of hope and equality and inclusiveness is forever meaningful. I'm honored, I'm humble, and most thankful for the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and thankful to Mr. Roland Martin for the powerful message he brought us tonight to stand, and we shall stand. Thank you.
Well, the first thing, if y'all don't know, Brother Martin is a selfie king. So the first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna take a selfie with him.
You ain't doing it right.
He said I don't have my arm right.
He got short arms. There you go.
All right. I told you he the selfie king. Again, if I can ask all my brothers, I bring you greetings from Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I am the president here for the Gamma Kappa Lambda chapter here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Again, Brother Martin, I just want to say thank you for coming here and blessing us with your words of encouragement and guidance. And again, I'm quite sure we all took something away from this tonight. Just a small token of appreciation from, as you see on the stage, the Port City Alphas. You have the combination of the grad chapter and the undergrad chapter. So just want to give you a small appreciation from us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Brother Martin, your words this evening were truly inspirational and empowering. The knowledge you left the Wilmington community with is invaluable. You came here tonight to honor the legacy of our dear brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I know that he will be proud that you continue to fight for radical change like he once did. I know that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. will be proud that you continue to use your voice to speak and advocate on behalf of the voiceless in our communities who continue to be oppressed by systemic oppression. Brother Martin, I know that Dr. King will be proud that you continue to use that spirit of discomfort that you alluded to shake things up when it's truly needed in this country. And Brother Martin, I know that he will be proud that a brother of our fraternity continues to fight on ice, like we like to say in the frat, for our community. So Brother Martin, I would like to give you a token of our appreciation on behalf of Reed's Jeweler and the Omicron Theta chapter. Here you go. Something for the missus.
Where's the brother Sean Palmer? I just want to say thank you. This guy right here has done a tremendous job. Not only for the campus of UNCW, but the community. We have seen so much change since he showed up on the campus. So again, we just want to say thank you.
Thank you all for coming and joining in this dialogue with Mr. Martin this evening. It's been our pleasure to have you here, Mr. Martin. And I'm gonna first get you to validate that you and I didn't plan my little closing remarks here, because there's some things I'm gonna bring up that are very similar. My colleagues and I at the Upperman Center would like to thank all of our great partners for making this come to fruition. For everyone here in attendance tonight, please join me in an expression of gratitude for everyone who has supported, who has organized, who has participated, who has performed, and who has inspired us tonight. We can never predict with any certainty the conditions or the timing for our call to justice. And to quote Dr. King, the time is always right to do what is right. I am so used to this because I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old at home, so this is not any strange territory for me. On a personal note, I have never felt more committed to elevating dialogue about race, community, and justice to help us continue to move forward. And I really encourage each one of you to do the same thing with each other, perhaps with someone you haven't spoken with, and even with someone who you may not have much in common. While we arrive at the close of this program, it also serves as a beginning to turn from a spectator to a participant. I'm Kent Guy, the Chief Diversity Officer here, and I want to thank everyone for coming out. Please be safe in your journeys home. Good night and Godspeed.